happy that you all are able to join today, and I want to introduce Wilma Shaw, who has more letters behind her name than I do, and Paris Reed, who also has lots of letters behind her name. And they've both added HPHC. Actually, Wilma put it in her alphabet soup. But all of that joking aside, my point is that these are two very well-educated women who came to holistic pet health coaching from the human side of health coaching. So you both have a very different perspective on kind of coming into working on the pet side. So Wilma, I'd love to hear, I know we met through an FNT board, basically, where Delora DeVore, one of the other FNT graduates, posted, hey, I'm doing this program, y'all ought to check it out. And from there, we had a really interesting conversation, and you ended up joining into the program. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about how that all went.
Yeah, thank you. It is interesting to think back that, I'm not on Facebook very often, but I do look at our NTP group, and I saw this post about pet wellness and health coaching for dogs and cats. And it just, I don't know, it just struck me as something that I would very much like to learn about. I know I contacted you saying, hey, I'm already a nutritional therapy practitioner. I know all about like food and the gut and anatomy. So, what else am I going to learn here? And I'll tell you, the biggest shocker is the traditional Chinese veterinary medicine. And I'm still learning that. And I probably always will be. But to have that on top of all the functional nutrition and lifestyle medicine that you offer in this course is absolutely amazing. To me, that is just a really big win, big extra, because I was not trained in traditional Chinese medicine at all. And everything that I've been learning that I didn't know I can apply back to my human, practice. Yeah. And to myself as well. But, yeah, so seeing that in Facebook, and I'd never thought about pet wellness before. And, I don't have a problem talking, so I'll just continue with
oh my gosh.
I can see it coming soon.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think for Paris and I both, working with people, it's almost like just a natural next step to work with pets. Who knows, maybe horses are next. But what I found most fascinating was my awareness of how sick dogs and cats are. I had no idea. So I'm going to tell you just a brief little story because I thought about this last night. I had a deer cat named Swirls for about 15 years. And probably about 7 years old, she wasn't jumping anymore. And this was a while ago. She just wasn't jumping up on the bed, on chairs. Took her to the vet, no arthritis, couldn't find anything wrong. And I just kind of blurted out, maybe she should eat like me. And the reason I said that is I just learned about primal. So I had just gotten rid of grains, sugars, processed foods, never thought about it for the cat, right? But I'm sitting in this vet's office and I just blurt this out. And she says, well, that'd be a good idea. You can try that. And I did. So I didn't cook for her at that time, but I did go grain-free and really looked at, getting the best ingredients and did some raw at that point. And guess what? She started jumping again.
Beautiful.
And, was great until the end of her life. And that was just a big message to me that, I don't have an issue with the medical profession necessarily. But I found that vets were no different than doctors in my primary care, where they weren't, at least she wasn't taking the time to talk to me about what was really going on. She never asked me what she ate, right? We never talked about diet. And after that, I did find a holistic, like naturopathic vet. And I went in with both of my cats and we talked and talked, and she asked me what I fed them. And then at the end, I said, well, aren't you going to tell me they're ready for their vaccines, their boosters? And, you know, they were all like 14 years old at the time. And she said, no, I think they've had enough. And I gave her a big hug. and so I think you can see that even though when I saw your offering on the Facebook group, I may not have had it at the top of my mind that this is something I want to do. There was these little steps along the way that after I thought about it certainly led me to be open to seeing that offering come through. So yeah, I love it.
Right on. And that's so amazing. But what's really astonishing to me is that your first vet said, yeah, that's probably a good idea, and didn't like go into the whole dogma of no, you're going to kill your cat if you feed it real food. So that's cool, but she had no resources for you to return to. So here you are having to make it up as you go along, and you made good choices based on the fact that, oh yeah, cats really are obligate carnivores, and they probably shouldn't be eating 70% of their caloric intake from processed carbs. And we wonder why they're obese and have diabetes, right? So good on you, but I am again humiliated that my profession sort of said, yeah, you can go figure this out by yourself. And that's the goal, is to make it so that we don't have to recreate the wheel, that there are options, so that you as a pet parent and you now as a holistic pet health coach can say, hey, here's a great place to start. Let's see how this works for your kitty, and then we'll make adjustments from there based on how good the response is, if we can improve things, et cetera, et cetera. So right on, Wilma. That's exactly it. So FNTP is what does the alphabet suit mean?
Yeah,
Let's hear it.
I love it. So FNTP is functional nutritional therapy practitioner. So I studied with the Nutritional Therapy Association when we were still doing in-person classes, and we actually learned a modality of palpations and some muscle testing. That's the functional component. And then BCHN, which is bitchin, by the way, is that I'm board certified in holistic nutrition through the National Association of Nutritional Professionals, NANP. And then the HPHC, Holistic Pet Health Coach. So I'm probably more than that. My background is actually in electrical engineering, and I have a master's in business. And so, I left that whole engineering career after about 28 years, deciding that I wanted to get in and help people, and now help pets rather than help make a corporation and their stockholders happy. So.
Right on. Well, cool.
Yeah.
And Paris, you are the newest graduate of the certification program. Yay! And just with flying colors. I mean, I know FDN is functional diagnostic nutrition. What's the -P stand for?
Practitioner.
Right on. Oh, that was hard.
They make us hyphen it. I have no idea why. It's pretty lame, but
okay. And then what's FBCS?
Functional blood chemistry specialist.
Right on. And so that's a whole different institute of training, or a different certification level? Yep. Right on.
Yep.
So these are not women that came into this program uneducated, for sure. And the thing is that I think your backgrounds allowed you to really fly through the material. In your case, Paris, I think you completed this in 14 weeks, something like that. It's
like 6.
Wow. Well, that's not the norm.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, so
Yeah.
that's
Well, I
so
did
this
the
is a
approach
16.
different. So
Yeah.
when I did a module, I did the homework, and then I didn't move on until I did the homework, and it was just an easier learning process for me. And the way you had it laid out was so easy to comprehend, and the way your teaching modalities were easy for me, but coming from a health background, it was a lot of new material, but a lot of stuff that I already knew. But the way you explained it was just like superb. And I was like, wow, I wish you would have taught me my functional medicine stuff because it was
Thank
like
you.
so easy. And then you make it easy with the transcripts, for people who need to take notes or listen to, who can't do that. And then the PDFs and the workbooks. I mean, just the whole course itself was just put together very well and made it easy. So
Oh, I appreciate that because that's something I had no idea how to do this on. I'm good at flying by the seat of my pants, but it's yeah. So that's wonderful because that was the goal was to put this in a format that was easy for everybody to access and get through. And Michael, your mentor, thanks you for doing your homework as you went because that's been for some of our students. They're getting through the modules and then flooding the mentors with their homework, and it's like, oh man, wow. So, so
a lot to forget in between. So,
amen to that. Yeah. So, how I know you've been using this with your own dogs. You had a couple of great consultation videos as your final examination. How has this started to show up for you with your own guys and with reaching out to others?
so far it's been, easy. For me personally, I've had boxers for almost 30 years. And when my first dog, I was like, I want this dog to be the healthiest it can be. And so I found out about the raw diet back then, and I read Billinghurst's book, and I was like, hey, this makes sense to me. Why would I want to give my dog all this junky kibble? And of course, when you first get a puppy, you bring it home, you're feeding it kibble because that's all you know. But I just noticed the stool was yuck. So then I went to the raw, and if I ever had to kibble, use kibble in between for whatever reason, they had gas, they had diarrhea, they would get weepy eyes, they would start scratching. And this was just off a couple of days of using it. So for me, this transition of going to the crock pet in a cooked form was relatively easy. But I knew for all these years that I was kind of missing a component of the nutritional part of it. I would add some supplements to it. I definitely did the veggies, and I'd grind them up raw so that it was kind of just like a pulp and add it on top of their raw. I did the oils. I did, like in the wintertime, I would do oats, to warm them up. And so I was kind of doing a little bit of the stuff, but I didn't know what I was doing. So now I just happened for what I do for when I started this course, I was like, I'm just going to start going to the pet stores and watch these people and see what they're doing. And what they're doing is they're so confused, and they're staring at all these bags, and they go and they're reading the labels, and they don't know what to feed their pet because their pet has so many health issues, and they're not eating the food, they're refusing to eat the food, and they're just lost. And so what I have been doing, I have like 5 clients on the end that have filled out forms, but I haven't had consultations with them yet. And that's where I met them, was at the food store. And that's just it. They're just confused, and they're worried about their dogs. They go to the vet, and the vet's just trying to put them on medications. And I was like, there's a natural way to help them. So, and so with me feeding my dogs raw for so long, I haven't seen any health issues. I've never spayed or neutered my pets. I don't see all these illnesses that all these people are suffering. And I see how powerful it is to stay as natural as possible. Now, I'm not saying that I haven't had a dog get sick. I did have one that ended up with lymphoma, and I have, don't know why that happened. It's genetics, I guess. And so whenever he was dying, I was mortified that nobody could help me make him feel better. And so I tried CBD, but I didn't know how to dose it, and I was afraid to do all the things. And then my other dog, he ended up breaking his leg, and so he had a screw in his hock, and that messed up his spine, so he couldn't quite walk right. And I think when they did the surgery, they just wrap him and throw him around and put him on these wedge pillows and do all this stuff. And when he came out of surgery, he wouldn't walk. And so I had to learn how to do all these modalities of trying to help him with laser therapy, with PEMF, with CBD, cranial sacrum, massage therapist, acupuncture. I did all the things. And then at the end, he ended up having some kidney failure. And I wish I had known about you last year, Dr. Ruth, because I could have supported him and made him not suffer so bad. And what ended up happening is the vets just told me there's nothing you can do for him. You have to put him down. And I was devastated. That broke my heart. And I still can't talk about it. But so going through the course, it was really difficult because I'd be like, oh my God, that was Jag. I could have helped him. Oh, I could have at least made him feel better. Oh, he had those signs, like 2 weeks before he went down, like when he started really feeling horrible. So I'm glad now that I can hopefully help other people with their dog, and so they don't have to feel so helpless like I felt.
And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that with your dog, and that's just really been killing me. What I was hearing, and this is part of why this program was born, what I was hearing from my consultation clients is that their dog would get to a certain point and the vet's like, I got nothing else for you. He's going to suffer. So just go ahead and put him to sleep now. And wow, there's so much else that can be done. And Paris, good for you that you dug in and found options. I mean, part of your bag of tricks is using pulsed electromagnetic frequency as a therapeutic modality. But this is what makes us all better practitioners is sadly the experience that we have either in our own health or in our pet's health that makes us really stretch and reach for something else and look for other options. So but I'm just so sorry you had that experience. I can't, I don't know what the heck's going on with my profession. I do. They're just overwhelmed and overworked.
Yeah.
I was talking with somebody earlier today, and her neighbors are both veterinarians and they are fried. They're a 3-doctor practice. They can't find the third doctor. They're just exhausted. They have young kids. They can't see their kids because they're working sun up to sundown. And that's not an excuse for everything, but when you're working and seeing 60 clients a day and you've got 6 minutes, maybe 10 to talk to each person, there's no way that you can help these critically ill or chronically ill pets feel better. And so that's what's happening, I think, is that veterinarians are so burnt out, so fried. They don't have other modalities in their toolkits to help. And so instead of saying, maybe there's some other options, but I don't have them for you, they're saying there's just no other options, which isn't true. And so sadly, euthanasia has become the treatment of choice for many chronically ill pets. And that's not always inappropriate, but not to the degree we're experiencing it now. So thank you for sharing that. I know that's still painful for you.
Yeah, and the one thing about it was that was the ER, so I had to take him into the ER. And when my vet found out, she was actually livid, and she's like, why did they do that? And I was just in shock. And my husband's like, yes, do it. And I was like, no, and I lost I couldn't even speak for myself or my dog. And I was just like, I was numb and dumb, And so I, in hindsight, I wish I just would have took some deep breaths and just stood up for what I believed, but oh, well, we can't win them all. So it was a good lesson, and it led me to you, and you were doing that webinar with Reed Davis, and you were in your speech with him with the whole group in like 10 minutes. And I was like, I'm signing up. I'm like, I just started researching, and I was like, oh, she has a course. I'm going to sign up. And so, I mean, I didn't even waste any time. So I was like, because I knew that this was the final piece of my puzzle, because I've known that I've always wanted to help my pets and pets in general. When I was in high school, I was like, I'm going to be a veterinarian. And then I was like, ooh, I'm not going to go to college for that long. And so it's always been a passion. And so I'm just grateful that you did that. And when you did that, because if not, I would still not know.
Wow, right on. Yeah. And then plus you don't have to be $250,000 in debt. That is what the average debt load of a veterinary student is these days. And it's like,
wow.
And they're coming out, they're making, I don't know if it's good money anymore. Maybe they're making $90,000 a year, but when you're looking at $250,000 of debt and replacing your junker car that's barely gasping, it's just not economically tenable. And so
And stressed out.
Right.
up to here, I mean, the veterinary education process, nothing is terribly difficult. It's just the sheer volume of
Yeah.
information that you are asked to master. And sadly, that's part of the issue, is that so much of the teaching is based on helping you pass the multiple choice test and not foster a truly deep understanding. And so for many of the students in the course, that's the most painful part, is doing the homework videos, like just talking to Zoom and telling, for example cases, here's what I'd suggest, here's some options, conveying empathy, all of those good things. But ultimately, that's how any practice is. You have to be able to grab the information that's in your head, synthesize it, and get it out of your mouth in a format that's useful to your client ultimately. And that's kind of another failing with veterinary medicine. We're not teaching critical thinking. Actually, that's a problem in a lot of places, but we're not teaching critical thinking. So there may be, you can answer the multiple choice test, but when you see this dog in front of you, this 10-year-old Bichon Frise that has had diarrhea since it was 7 years old, how are you going to pull all those things out and put it into use? And that's the frustrating part for me. And that's one of my big goals, is to help, reestablish critical thinking processes for my students. So.
That reminds me. So you mentioned, young veterinarians, and so at the clinic I was going to, it was a new veterinarian. She come in, and I had the new puppy, and so I was going in for the shots, and she was just doing cookie cutter stuff. And then you go back in, 4 weeks later or whatever it is, and she was like, after she didn't even, I live in a rural area. There's not that many people, and she had no idea who I was. She didn't even recognize me, the dog, or nothing. And she was just going through the cookie cutter stuff and asking me if I wanted this, and this, and this. And I was like, nope, I just want the basics, And so it's sad that it is that way. But with my other dog, who's 2, he started having really bad itchy skin. He had a long history. He had Giardia. He was on antibiotics, but then he started having itchy skin. You couldn't even touch him. And so I said, well, what about allergies or food sensitivities? Oh, he's too young. There's no way he'd have food sensitivities. And I was like, okay, but he was just on antibiotics and he just killed his microbiome. Don't you think he'd have sensitivities? Can we do some sort of test? She said no. And I was like, what? So I did all these other testing on my own, and then now I actually know how to do that. So another great thing about the course, so they just don't know. We can only know what we know.
No, and it's just it. So let's see, in 2016, that's what it was, 2016, 17, I was having major IBS symptoms. Turned out it was C. diff for the 3rd time. The doc, and actually it was the PA, because the gastroenterologist couldn't get me in for 3 more months. So, but she's like, okay, it's probably C. diff. We tested, lo and behold, it was conventional therapy, annihilate what was left of my microbiome. Okay. And so I started doing microbiome testing and using that to use food and other things to manipulate my gut to improve the health there. And I took her one of the reports, and she's like, well, I don't know what to do with this. And I'm like, well, you probably want to start studying this, because I guarantee you it will be a modality that you're going to need to understand within the next 3 years. And lo and behold, microbiome testing is a well-accepted modality now in conventional medicine.
Oh, that's
But this
good.
is well, it's helpful. But this is the thing, is that medicine changes so slowly. And so what we may be using right now may take 20 years to make it to a textbook or to a CE course or something like this. And, it's now, leaky gut, when I started talking about it in 2006, was a fringe thing. And now on the conventional side, they call it intestinal permeability, which it truly is. But this is now mainstream. So this is not all fringe stuff, folks. We're learning how to use the tools available to us to help improve health in ways that just you can't do by just giving a pill. So yeah, right on. Go for it, Wilma.
I wish I had taken notes. There's like so many things I want to comment on. But first, Paris, I think that you're an amazing pet parent. You did. I mean, I think about how such a long life that you were taking care of them so well. And we all just carry regrets of things we didn't know at the time. And I have that feeling with my children that I fed hamburger helper and Bisquick Happy Meal. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't know until my children were basically out of the house. And so, the same thing with my pets. I was a kibble feeder, right?
Right.
And that, but even then, that was a while ago. I was not aware of the sickness. Like you said, you're at the food store and you're finding, pet parents that are trying to figure out what food to get to help their sick animal. I found out going to dog parks. And I would say, can they have this, tree that, oh, is it, they can't have that. They have IBS, they have IBD, they have this. And I'm just like, oh my God, I didn't know pets had IBS and IBD, and they have a gastroenterologist. And so so I was just like, oh my God, we are so needed. And Dr. Ruth, when you mentioned like you have colleagues or friends that are veterinarians still and struggling, they need to partner with us, right?
Right
Because
on.
as long as it's not, and I'm sure your colleagues aren't like this, but as long as it's not about the pharmaceuticals and the agreements or whatever with the pet food, manufacturers for prescription diets, and there's got to be enough vets out there that really want to have us help their pet parents so that, we can get to the root of what is going on, which is what your teaching is.
It's really crazy, Wilma. So one of the few veterinarians that took me up on my offer, he is a fellow named Chip Jackson in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. And Chip's a good old boy. He's a really good man. He's a great vet, but he is the last person I expected that would look into this. So his clients were coming back after consultations with me in Johns Island, and he's like, "What the heck?" So he's like, "All right, I'll just give it a try." He was shocked. His Labrador, all of a sudden, all of the things, he started feeding the original crock pet diet, and the dog had been eating, the high-end kibble stuff that he thought was the best available. And he watched as the sensitive stomach, as many pet parents like to say, went away, as the skin problems went away. And he said, "This is incredible. And I am really embarrassed that I had not, I'd been saying this is the worst thing you could possibly do." And so, bam, there you
Right.
go. But this is it, until something forces you to change, sometimes we don't. And I think that's a lot of what's going on with my colleagues, is they are just so overwhelmed and so overloaded that they just don't have enough time to think their way out of a hat. But you're absolutely right. And this is part of what health coaching did on the human side, right? Because this started, the doctor would come in and say, "Well, Mary, your H1AC is astronomical and you're not showing uh, signs of diabetes yet, but you are definitely pre-diabetic. I'm going to ask you to talk with my nurse, Mary Jane. She's going to walk you through the things that you need to do to alter how you're eating, improve your lifestyle, lower your stress, and hopefully work your way out of this situation back into normal blood sugar function and insulin sensitivity." And so the nurse would come in and do the education piece. And then it was the registered dietitians. And then finally, health coaches realized that MDs were not able to get to the whole package. Like, yeah, we need to work on your diet, but you also need to look at, okay, where's your cortisol level and how is that impacting your insulin sensitivity and all of those things. So from the early 80s, when the other staff members started doing the human education piece, to where the human health coaching industry is now, is massively changed. But this came out of the need for education and the ability to sit down with somebody that truly had your back and could take you from the steps you could handle from point one, day one of your meetings, to, okay, great, these are making some changes. Let's add these other concepts in. But that's what health coaching is about, is somebody having your back and the ability to help you see where changes will make, which changes will have the most impact in your life. Is that fair assessment? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, God, yeah.
Can I tell you, like, it was good timing for me because I was fostering dogs at the time. I think I started the course and then we adopted our little baby pit bull mix. And I, like you, Paris, I mean, she came to me with kibble, started having, like, after the vet visit where she got her last like puppy vaccine and deworming, which was required through the animal rescue. Oh my God, she started having terrible skin, hot spots, and she was so itchy that when you'd go to pet her, her skin would just,
Yeah.
yeah, the shimmery skin.
Yep.
Yeah, and her nose was like always really dry, right? And thanks to you, I learned about the crock pet diet, the home cooking, and I'm on, I call it batch 21, but I cook 3 batches at a time. So you can tell how many I've done. And through that, I started just kind of simple and I started seeing such improvement. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things besides her skin clearing up and her poop being better, she stopped drinking so much freaking water.
Yep.
She was,
Yep.
and her nose was always moist. I mean, it was such a difference. And the thing that I'm really enjoying about it still is I'm still finding out, like, what is the proteins. I keep a little journal. I do 3 batches. I change just a couple things at a time. And, if I start noticing more skin shimmering again or itching or any yeasty, any ear problem, like, then it's like, okay, what has changed? And it's so much easier to go back and look at that and then make changes for further improvement. So yeah, I'm just grateful that I'm able to take this and put it in place with her. And then I'm sure Paris, like with people, it's so nice to get those emails, or the next visit with, like, oh, my dog's eyes aren't leaky anymore and they're not itching as much, and oh, they're loving their food and eat. And this is to me what makes it worth it. When you have
Especially
a pet parent. Yeah, go ahead.
Because with pets, they can't tell us, and so when you finally learn to read a dog, like understand what they're trying to tell you, because it's an art. It is an art to try to figure out how your dog is expressing to you. But whenever you're doing all the right things, you can totally tell in how your pet acts and their symptoms or lack of symptoms. And it's amazing to have them say, "Hey, that worked. What you told me, it's awesome. My dog's doing great." So yeah, I find it more rewarding than humans.
Because they're not going to lie and forget that, oh yeah, I'm not having to use the bathroom 17 times in the morning anymore. It's only once. Yeah. But that's right. I mean, and it's hilarious. I had a friend who has a dog that ended up sadly developing mast cell cancer. She'd been using Apoquel. She didn't want to take the time to cook, and then at 4 years of age, when her dog developed mast cell cancer, she's like, "Ooh, okay, I got to change something." And one of the things was not giving Apoquel anymore. And so, we get the Glacier Peaks test result back, and that's part of what we use to determine what food sensitivities are present and how to develop a diet that doesn't impact those sensitivities and create more inflammation in the body.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "But we have challah and salmon every morning, and I don't want to." I don't want to ruin that tradition that we have every day. And she said, I don't think this test is accurate. And I said, well, okay. And I said, what else have you noticed since you've changed? And she said, well, actually, her itching did stop. and I don't have to use 𝐼𝐴 anymore. So maybe I will avoid those two things. but it's just, but right, that's in how much resistance we humans are to change when we really like something, even though it's not in our best interest. And we put that same thing onto our pets as well. So
Yeah, it's so true.
it's tough.
And a lot
But
of
it was,
people are, I'm sorry,
but
a lot of
please.
people are resistant to the change, you know, or like, oh, I can't cook for my pet. Well, why not? You're cooking your own dinner. What's the difference, you know? But they make it harder than it is, and it's really not hard. Maybe the first recipe you make is kind of overwhelming because you don't know how to do it. And then you do it, and then you go, what was I complaining about? Well, this is easy. And it's better than going to the pet store and trying to figure out what bag of food you should get. And none of them are what you should get. So,
well, yeah.
But, you know, people make things hard. And once they try it, then it's not as hard as they think it is. So,
Right on.
Yeah. Do you
right on.
remember me complaining, Dr. Ruth, about I was like, but I mean, it's fine with your little dog, right? One batch, because she has the video with like the little baggies for storing. It's like I'm storing in Tupperware like this big, right? That's 5 days worth or 3 days worth. And here's the solution. I finally bought on sale for like $56 a 22-quart slow roaster. It's less than an hour. Chop, chop, chop. Wash, chop, 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 throw it in, turn it on. 8 hours later, immersion blender. And then I add in if I'm doing beans or, you know, whatever else I'm adding in and put it in. It's so much easier than the multiple pots.
Right on. And that's it. I mean, you know, it's like, oh, I can't cook for my dog. Well, so this was the hilarious thing when I started with it was when Mary Jo and I met, we had 5 dogs ranging in size from 9 pounds to 75 and 5 cats. And so in 4 hours on a Sunday afternoon, once a month, we would just knock out the food for everybody. And we had the ability to do 4 triple batches at one whack. So, you know, so we were freezing everything in containers and all of that. But when I started with the sort of first iteration of the Crock Pet recipe, this is in 2007 when the pet food recall, the first one hit. And so guys are coming in and they're looking at me. They're like, Doc, she won't cook for me, but she cooks for the dog. And I said, well, add salt.
That's perfect.
They're like, oh, yeah, it does look pretty good. So, but that's the thing is that, you know, we just have gotten so far away from preparing healthy food in our homes and being on the go and all of that. But there's a way to do it, and just being prepared to make the commitment is the key. So, okay, I need 4 hours on a Sunday once a month to make this happen for all of our dogs. I need half an hour twice a week to food prep for myself, so I stay on track. It's the same set of concepts, right? And
but
that's,
you know what I have to say though, Dr. Ruth, is you know, you are as strong as you feel about, you know, the cooking, you are still willing to meet pet parents where they are, just like, you know, we learned in our health coaching to meet people where they are. Is you're full of great ideas of, you know, what can we do to help this pet feel better? What can that pet parent do? Maybe they can't cook right now, everything, but I remember talking about like the frozen vegetables and cooking them in some broth, you know, and making it a topper and choosing food, you know, even if it is a kibble-y type, like more wisely while we transition. And I think that's really important, you know, your willingness to meet people and pet parents where they are.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that's the key to being a successful coach, right? You can lay out the whole program and most people will go, oh, it ain't gonna happen. And you're shut off right there. But if you introduce one little step, then okay, I can get a bag of Normandy blend veggies at Costco and throw a handful in a pot of water and throw that on top of the kibble. And that's exactly it. So we all have to start somewhere. I mean, I was telling Mary Jo years ago, I mean, I ate, and that's part of why I got sick, right? I ate the standard American diet, fast food, all of that stuff. The first step for me was there was a company in my area that delivered frozen meat and vegetables. And they literally, I would come home, my freezer would be full. I'd grab a bag of vegetables and a meat portion, take that upstairs with me at, I'm getting home at 7, 8 o'clock at night, throw it in the sink, defrost it, and then feed the pets. And by the time that was done, then I'm taking this food and throwing it in a skillet and sauteing the vegetables. And that's how I retrained myself to eat healthy and eat whole foods. That's the same thing. I mean, it's a process. And the goal is to show somebody, wow, look what happened when you just added fresh veggies to your dog's kibble. Wow, what would happen if you actually cooked more of the food or cooked at least half of it? And Wilma, you went through this. It was like, I'll just do half and half. And then it was like, oh, heck. What happens if I take all of the kibble away? Oh, wow, the symptoms went. But that's the thing, is that you have to get to where you can make the commitment to time and make sure that that's your priority. And it cracks me up. So that's how Rodney Habib started. He did a TED Talk on the effect of adding vegetables. There was a Scottish Terrier Association paid for study these many years ago to see the impact of adding fresh food into the dog's diet on bladder cancer, because unfortunately it's a very high number of those dogs develop bladder cancer. Lo and behold, adding in leafy, eating the rainbow reduced the risk of bladder cancer in these dogs between 66 and 89%.
Wow.
Just by adding veggies,
Wow.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing, and so somebody's saying somebody gave salmon in their regimen of diet, but her Scotty doesn't like salmon. And probably what that's telling you is that your Scotty is maybe sensitive to salmon and it doesn't make him or her feel good. So that's the other thing we have to do, right? We have these test results and we said, oh, well, here's this diet we've designed. And the dog's like, bah! That's telling you that that's not quite the right answer. And then that's the beauty, is that because you're making food, you can manipulate the ingredients and fix it.
Yeah. And
But yeah.
that's part of the problem. Like when babies are born too, we're not taught to pay attention to them as, growing children. If they don't want to eat something, it's not always just because they're being picky. It's because they actually have innate wisdom that we've lost. And I wanted to say about, like, you're talking about the kibble, and I'm thinking, oh my God, a dog that's only eating kibble. I mean, it's like it's highly processed heat. I look at some of the ingredients, like, oh, look, it has flax and fish oil. Yeah. And then they're putting it under what temperature and pressure? And, is that fat? Like, is that a healthy fat source at that point? No. I mean,
No.
I'm just in my head. I don't know. I'm just picturing like this dried up, there's
probably an episode of How It's Made somewhere about pet food. So right on. So the person that was asking about the salmon is saying, well, what other fish can you use? And she hadn't thought about. So ladies, how would you respond to that?
Whitefish, tilapia.
Yep. So
but you want to test, because they might have a reaction to that fish as well. They could have a reaction to shellfish, so you have to watch your oils. You can't just use salmon oil. You can't just use sardine oil if they have a reaction to that. So test, don't guess.
Test, don't guess.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, you can do the brute force method of trying this and, oh no, that wasn't right, or, well, this is pretty good, but what else can we do? Or you can, as Paris said, test, don't guess. And so we use a very simple at-home test that requires some saliva and some hair from your pet. And it's a bioresonance test made by Glacier Peaks Holistics. They call it the Life Stress Scan test. It's awesome. But that's a way, it's a way to develop a roadmap towards health. So that's truly the deal. And if you are interested in contacting Paris and Wilma, I'm going to drop their info here. But they are, this is it. They are fully trained and certified, and this is what they're doing for a living, is helping pet parents help their pets when there's not other options out there. And so that's what I keep saying. We can do it the brute force way, working one thing at a time. But what's more important is to develop a plan that's going to work, at least have a really good chance of working. And I would say probably 90% of the time the initial plan works, and then the other 10% we have to make some manipulations to get it right for that individual pet. That's the beauty of individualized nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the other thing I was just thinking about is like, why is it fish?
Exactly.
Is there a specific nutrient? Are you looking for omega-3s, right? So there's other ways to get omega-3s. And if that fish is being cooked, it depends on how as well as to how beneficial, how much omega-3, supportive omega-3 are you getting? So.
Exactly. And sadly, most of the pet products that are omega-3 supplements are from salmon oil. So we're seeing massive salmon sensitivities as a result. And so much of it is poorly stored and poorly preserved. And they just, they've ended up just having oxidized oils, which is sort of worse than taking nothing. And then, we got a problem. So you're being smart by rotating your meats. But again, get somebody to give you a hand to walk you through this and figure out how to set this diet up correctly. So, right on. So, if you all were talking to somebody that was interested in doing the program, but were sort of on the fence about it, what would you say to them?
So doing your program, becoming a health coach.
Yep. Exactly.
If they were on the fence, well, first I would ask why. Like, why are you on the fence? What's causing that? And I mean, I would definitely say if you're feeling pulled at all, do it. I think this, whether it's for like taking care of your own pets, your friend's pets, your family, or making a business out of it, this is wide open. Right now, we are in such high demand. And people want to help their pets and they're willing to put the effort. And honestly, I think helping their pets is going to be helping themselves. And so I think that by taking your program and learning how to support animals with the functional nutrition, the lifestyle, the Chinese medicine, we have such an opportunity to have not only a successful business, but to really make a difference in pets' lives. And so I would ask why, but then, if they're being drawn, I would say talk to Dr. Ruth and, ask a question or two and jump on in, because it's an amazing education for, not $250,000 or whatever.
And not 8 years.
Yeah, you
Right.
don't have to go into terrible debt, and it could be 4 weeks, Paris, or for me, it's a few months.
If you're on the Paris Reed Power Program, you're going to kill it in 6 weeks, right?
I was obsessed. I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to do it, and I think if you're there and you're interested, if you're at this point where you're going, I'm thinking about it, just do it. You won't regret it. The other coaches in the program are awesome. They're like-minded. And the best thing about it, what I love is Monday mornings. And I love meeting up with Dr. Ruth every Monday and having coaching calls, and you get to learn from other people because they have ideas and questions that you wouldn't even think about asking. And you're like, that's a good thing to have in my bucket for later. It's a good tool. It's a good resource. So Mondays, I just love Mondays. I joined both coaching classes just because I wanted to know, I wanted to learn, maybe I had FOMO, I don't know. But what's awesome about it is that Dr. Ruth's going to be there to support you. And once you graduate, she's still there every Monday. So when we have hard cases or questions or something that would be like, hey, I never thought of this before, she's going to be there to support you. So you're not doing this alone. It's not a hard course. Yes, it takes time. Yes, I sped through it, but you don't have to have a nutritional background to get it done, because Dr. Ruth does such an awesome job at presenting the material. Traditional Chinese medicine, yes, it's a little difficult, but I love it. I just love the way that works, and so that modality of it is perfect. But it's not, the course is not based on that, so you don't have to get lost and worried about something like traditional Chinese medicine. So
Right on.
I say do it.
It's
Don't
Do it.
You won't regret it.
right on. And that's exactly it. I think we are so needed. And that was part of why I did this, because I could talk to 20 clients a week, and that's not even scratching the surface. I mean, there's something like 15,000 veterinarians in the United States, and they are all overwhelmed. So this is a wide open field. My goal is to help veterinary professionals understand that, yeah, you really do need us to help you out with your clients and your patients, because we're sadly, my profession is just burning people out on veterinary medicine, and we used to be one of the top 6 most respected professions, and that's strangely pharmacists are still, because I don't know, it's interesting. But that's the thing, is that people will trust the pharmacist to tell them the truth about the drug interactions and side effects, but not their doctor or the nurse. So it's just, anyway, that's the deal, is we need to create this font of information so that pet parents have options and ability to figure out how to help their pets and to trust their own intuition. Like, how many, Paris, you were talking about your dog in the emergency clinic and just getting overwhelmed. But how many of us have stood there? And I have, to be honest, because I no longer have a clinic. So I've had to take my pets to various emergency clinics over the years, especially Mona, who was fond of eating things. And I found myself standing there like a deer in headlights, not being
Right.
the best advocate for my pet, until it was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, I know better than this. And, what if you had the ability to have somebody have your back to guide you through the questions you need to ask the vet at your next visit? Like,
Right.
does my dog with kidney disease, shouldn't we be doing like maybe a urine culture and sensitivity or something like that to make, and it's just like, okay. So that's the deal, is that how can we support you as a pet parent? How can we help you make the most out of the veterinary visits that you do have by having you prepared with the questions you need to ask and the lab tests that you may need to ask for? So, this is the deal, is knowledge is power, and that's the goal, is to share knowledge with you. So ladies, thank you so much for jumping on today. We're going to make this a regular series, and I think probably start doing a question and answer type deal so that you can help get some basic ideas, like where pet parents can start to support their pets. Because that, Paris, I mean, talking about being in pet stores and just watching people, looking at ingredient packages and being like, what is all this stuff?
Right.
And so that's exactly it. So right on. Thank you both so much. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. And for those of you watching, there's some information on how to contact Wilma, how to contact Paris, although I think I put Wilma's in there twice. And then also, if you are interested in the program, there's a link in there. Drop us your email and phone number, and then you'll go on to learn a little bit more about the program and decide if that's right for you, and hopefully make an application. So until next time, everybody take care. Give everybody's pets a hug, and we'll talk to you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr.